He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got everybody here in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands.
The Election Truth Alliance claims it uncovered evidence of a pre-programmed vote-flipping algorithm used in the 2024 election's tabulation computers. According to their analysis, the odds of one candidate winning all 7 swing states, just outside the automatic recount range, while getting less than half the popular vote, around 1 in 10 octillion. That's 1 with 28 zeros? Here's what they say. In key swing states like Pennsylvania and Nevada, the data shows unusual patterns. For example, counties that processed higher volumes of ballots had statistically disproportionate gains for one candidate, and they state that 88 counties flipped from blue to red and none flipped from red to blue. That's nearly unheard of in modern U.S. elections. Yet their methodology suggests the anomalies align with targeted algorithm-based vote manipulation rather than random error. Now, before you write this off, yes, these findings are claims. The ETA says they are evidence of manipulation, not proof. They're calling for hand counts and audits, especially of paper ballots. So what does this mean for democracy? If it's true, and worth investigating, we may be facing one of the most significant election integrity crises in U.S. history. Here's the question. If the odds of this outcome happening naturally were truly 1 in 10 octillion, shouldn't we demand a forensic audit right now to restore trust in our elections? Like and share if you believe transparency isn't optional. Each sentence can be long if the input requires it, but must not exceed 30 words.
This is the story of how the world's richest person, the owner of Tesla and X, bought the global town square, then corrupted it before using his immense wealth to help elect a convicted felon. April 14, 2022. Elon Musk makes an unsolicited offer to buy Twitter for $44 billion. He claims the site has become politically skewed and says, for Twitter to deserve public trust, it must be politically neutral. October 27th, the deal goes through. The next evening, a far-right conspiracy theorist breaks into the San Francisco home of Democrat House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, intending to kidnap her. Pelosi is away, but the man attacks her husband Paul, hitting him repeatedly on the head with a hammer. Paul Pelosi escapes with his life, but requires surgery for a fractured skull. While most people take the chance to decry political violence, the new owner of Twitter, Elon Musk, posts a tweet sharing an entirely false claim that Paul Pelosi was in fact injured in a drunken fight with a male prostitute with whom he was involved. Musk includes a link to a false claim on a website that has a history of publishing conspiracy theories, including a story asserting that Hillary Clinton is dead and has been replaced by a body double. Musk's post is retweeted 24,000 times before he deletes it. November 18th, Musk's Twitter starts to unlock previously banned accounts. Misogynist far-right influencer Andrew Tate was permanently banned from Twitter in 2017 after urging women to, quote, bear some responsibility for rape. Now he's back. Tate posts, I've decided to fly to the failed state of California, walk into Twitter HQ, and tell @Elon Musk he's a legend. On my way. 2 months later, Tate will be arrested in Romania on suspicion of human trafficking, rape, and forming an organized crime group. December 8th. 3 members of Twitter's Trust and Safety Council resign. In their resignation letter, they cite research that found slurs against Black Americans and gay men jumped 195% and 58% respectively since Musk's takeover. 3 days later, the remaining members of Twitter's Trust and Safety Council are dismissed. Musk then tweets that, quote, my pronouns are prosecute Fauci, a reference to a conspiracy theory that the COVID crisis was exacerbated by America's top infectious disease doctor. December 16th, having claimed he's a free speech absolutist, Musk bans @ElonJet, a Twitter account that tracks the movements of his private jet using publicly available data. Musk also bans the accounts of a number of journalists who have written about @ElonJet. February 12, 2023. Ahead of the Super Bowl, both Musk and President Joe Biden tweet their support for the Philadelphia Eagles. Biden's tweet is seen 29 million times, Musk's just 9 million times. Incensed, Musk leaves the game early and calls an impromptu meeting of Twitter engineers at 2:36 a.m. Their job? To change the Twitter algorithm to artificially inflate the reach of Musk's tweets by a factor of 1,000, making him the preeminent presence on the site. July 23rd, Musk announces Twitter is now called X. August 25th, Donald Trump, once banned, returns to the platform by posting a picture of his mugshot from Fulton County Jail with the words, "Election interference, never surrender." Musk reposts the shot. 4 days later, X reverses Twitter's long-standing ban on paid political advertising. November 15th, in a post promoting the racist conspiracy theory that Jewish people are importing immigrants to America to fix elections for Democrats, one X user writes, "Jewish communities have been pushing the exact kind of dialectical hatred against whites that they claim to want people to stop using against them." Musk replies saying, "You have said the actual truth." In response, several advertisers, including Disney, Warner Brothers, and Comcast, pause their advertising on X. Musk then tells advertisers concerned by hate speech on the platform,
"Go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself." Is that clear?
Over subsequent months, Musk will become obsessed with the false claim that Democrats are allowing immigrants into America to create more Democratic voters, in effect stealing the coming election, sharing the claim numerous times with his followers and pushing it to tens of millions more who choose not to follow him. A year later, it will be revealed that Musk, a South African immigrant, worked illegally in the US in the 1990s. November 25th, on X, Musk boosts the Pizzagate conspiracy theory, a long-debunked claim alleging high-profile Democrats ran a pedophile abuse ring from a Washington pizza restaurant. March 25th, 2024. Musk loses a lawsuit against the Center for Countering Digital Hate. He'd sued them after they flagged a rise in hate speech after Musk bought Twitter. In his ruling, a U.S. district judge calls Musk's case vapid and says this case is about punishing the defendants for their speech. May 2024, Musk creates a political action committee which he calls America PAC. Its objective is to mobilize 1 million Republican voters in swing states in an effort to hand the election to Trump. Musk commits to putting tens of millions of dollars of his own money into the Get Out the Vote push and clears his calendar every Friday morning for 30 to 60 minutes to meet with the team he's assembled to run the effort. July 14th. Musk calls Trump on behalf of J.D. Vance, urging Trump to select Vance as his running mate. Vance says abortion is murder and insults women who haven't become mothers.
A bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made.
Musk's phone call is part of a broad effort by Silicon Valley billionaires to ensure Vance is selected. The next day, Vance is unveiled as Trump's vice presidential candidate. September 6th, Trump says that if he wins, he will appoint Musk to head up a government efficiency commission.
And Elon, because he's not very busy, has agreed to head that task force.
The idea came from Musk, whose companies are currently facing at least 20 federal investigations. If he gets the role, it would give the world's richest man the power to regulate the regulators who hold sway over his companies. Last year alone, his companies were promised $3 billion across nearly 100 different contracts with 17 federal agencies. September 9th, Musk spreads a conspiracy theory that immigrants in Ohio are eating people's pets. The following day, Trump repeats the slur during the presidential debate with Kamala Harris.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs.
The false claim leads to multiple bomb threats against the Springfield immigrant community. September 15th and 16th. Over a single weekend, Musk amplifies a conspiracy theory that ABC leaked sample debate questions to the Harris campaign, falsely claims that the Dems want to take your kids, further fuels racist lies about immigrants eating pets, shares with his nearly 200 million followers on X that Trump must win to, quote, preserve freedom and meritocracy in America, and insinuates that it is suspicious that no one is even trying to assassinate Biden and Kamala, adding a thinking face emoji. The U.S. Secret Service confirms that it is aware of the post. The White House issues a statement saying violence should only be condemned, never encouraged or joked about. This rhetoric is irresponsible. October 4th, Musk posts, unless Trump wins and we get rid of the mountain of smothering regulations that have nothing to do with safety, humanity will never reach Mars. This is existential. Musk is the owner of SpaceX and stands to make billions from US government space contracts. October 5th, the user handle @America is taken from an X user and given by Musk to his America PAC. That evening, he joins the former president on stage in Pennsylvania, jumping about wildly.
Fight, 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 vote, vote, vote.
By now, he's moved with his senior team to a war room in a hotel in Pennsylvania to focus full-time on the Trump campaign. He speaks to Trump multiple times a week, is doing a series of pro-Trump town halls across the state, and has recruited lieutenants from his companies to join him. October 15th, legal filings from Musk's Political Action Committee show he has personally donated at least $75 million to the effort to re-elect Trump. October 18th, it's revealed that another Musk-funded group called Future Coalition PAC is targeting Muslim voters in Michigan and Jewish voters in Pennsylvania with diametrically opposed political advertisements about Kamala Harris. In areas with large Muslim populations, the group is painting Harris as a close friend of Israel and is suggesting that she's beholden to the beliefs of her Jewish husband. But in areas with large Jewish populations, the ads say Harris panders to Palestine. Simultaneously, Musk is offering $100 to any Pennsylvania voter who signs his online petition as part of an effort to build a list of likely Trump voters. He also starts giving away $1 million a day to a randomly chosen voter who signed the petition. October 19th, it's revealed that the Building America's Future PAC, another Musk-funded campaign group, is impersonating the Harris campaign by setting up a fake website containing fake policy positions, then sending out text messages driving voters to the fake site. October 24th, it's revealed that Musk gave his America PAC a further $44 million in the first 16 days of October. October 25th, the Wall Street Journal reports that Musk has been in regular contact with Russian President Vladimir Putin since 2022. October 27th, Musk speaks at the now infamous Trump rally at Madison Square Garden, a gathering characterized by racism, misogyny, and threats of violence.
USA! USA!
Musk has posted more than 3,000 times on X in the last month, including dozens of unfounded claims about the election which have been viewed hundreds of millions of times. Apart from Trump himself, Musk is now the single biggest spreader of election disinformation. November 5th, Trump wins the presidential election. Elon Musk, a far-right conspiracy theorist, has succeeded in using his immense wealth to help swing the election in favor of a convicted felon.
Somehow we've decided in America that innovation and money replaces or obviates or excuses depravity. Cutting off aid to HIV positive mothers, deciding what veterans should get benefits, cutting off SNAP payments, which have shown to have a positive net return when people run out of money for food at the end of the month. I mean, I think one of the wonderful things about being an American, and quite frankly, for me, what it means to be a man and what I try to teach my boys is the whole point of prosperity is such that you can protect people. And I think the two of you are more impressed with Mr. Musk than I am. I think if somebody is making Nazi salutes, if somebody is being sued concurrently by two women for sole custody of their child because that person has not spent any time with that child, when someone is so severely addicted to drugs they can't get their shit together to show up to the White House without looking exceptionally high, I don't think that's the right role model for young men. So what I would ask to all of us is look at what money has done to us. That if someone can land a rocket on metal scissors or create a great AV, he's a genius. He's the wealthiest man in the world. But does that mean we should excuse depravity? Does that mean, unlike Bill Gates, he's not using his billions to help people? He's not planting trees, the shade of which he won't sit under. I think this is an individual who has literally come off the tracks, who is rabidly addicted to drugs, and is using his immense power to get people elected, and that too many of us excuse what is abhorrent behavior. I think his legacy is not going to be an EV or putting rockets into space. I think it's going to be unnecessary death, disease, and disability of the world's most vulnerable. That is not what it means to be an innovator. It's not what it means to be an American. It's not what it means to be a man.
Wow. Okay, so this is Errol Musk. This is Elon Musk's father. And this is Jana, Errol Musk's stepdaughter. So Errol Musk raised Jana since she was 4 years old. He also had 2 kids with her. Yup, Errol Musk had 2 kids with his stepdaughter, who he raised since she was 4 years old. What in the Woody Allen is going on? Okay, so this is Errol Musk.
You know what you told me a long time ago when I asked why you keep saying fake media?
Yeah.
You said to me, I say that because I need to discredit you so that when you say negative things about me, no one will believe. Do you know what you told me a long time ago when I asked why you keep saying fake media?
Yeah.
You said to me, I say that because I need to discredit you so that when you say negative things about me, no one will believe. You know what you told
Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein best friends? Trump is going to great lengths to get you to talk about anything else, but for years, Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were incredibly close. They partied together in Palm Beach, attended events at Mar-a-Lago, and Trump's name appears in Epstein's private jet logs. Trump once called Epstein a terrific guy who liked beautiful women, many of them on the younger side. And in tapes released by journalist Michael Wolff, Epstein calls Trump his best friend for 10 years. Despite all of Trump's best efforts, this history can't be erased. Since the charges against Epstein were made public, Trump has distanced himself from his longtime friend. But that changed when Elon Musk publicly accused Trump of being named in the FBI's Epstein files. Of course, when asked if he would release the files, Trump initially said yes, but then quickly walked that back. Musk offered no proof, but claimed that's why they hadn't been fully released. Since then, there's been so much news happening that people think it was an effort on Trump's part to bury Elon's claims. That's why everyone is asking,
was this case where it was determined 27,000 Dominion voting machines should be replaced because they were not secure. And the result of that was they replaced them with new Dominion touchscreen voting machines. And then the litigation was reopened. And that's when we saw a report from Dr. Alex Halderman. Someone familiar with his report, some of it's redacted. We have a redacted version that's public, but I spoke to someone who had read the unredacted version, and this is basically what he told me. There are 10 to 12 vulnerabilities that a reasonable undergrad computer science student would ask about. Here's how to attack them without much effort. And then, in a deposition in February of 2022 during the same case, Michael Barnes was asked, can you identify one cybersecurity election expert that would endorse the Georgia system as a reliable voting system? And on the witness stand, they said, I cannot. They couldn't find a single person to vouch for the system that was being relied upon for American elections. It's just comical how bad this was.
A question. Why can't I vote online? I asked that question to a bunch of cybersecurity experts, and they told me the big difference is that voting needs to be secret. But my bank account is secret, right? Actually, no. With your bank account, you can see your transactions afterward, and your bank can see them too. But with voting, it doesn't just need to be a secret from everybody else. You also need to not have any kind of receipt later that you could then show someone and say, look, I voted the way you told me to. Okay, so no receipt. Why is that a problem? Well, that in turn causes a different cybersecurity problem, which is verifying your vote was recorded correctly. With banking, you can check, but with voting, not so much. Big picture, this isn't your mom's email scammer. These are the most powerful countries in the world trying to influence each other's elections. This is cybersecurity on a whole other level. It's a hard problem, and there is a future where we could have online voting. We made a whole longer video about it, but in the meantime, go vote.
For free. Had uploaded a screen capture of a video that was on their screen regarding election interference and anomalies. And then I believe it was on TikTok, not Instagram, where it auto-played because of a scroll to the next video, okay? It's not related to this video. It's a separate video, and someone just didn't edit out the end of that clip. And then after this, Donald Trump was made aware, or the account was taken down. Still, none of that matters because I live for moments like what you were about to watch. Here is the full version of the video as it was originally uploaded.
Initiated by a court order, the Michigan investigation team obtained forensic access to a DS-200 tabulator, the machine that counts the votes.
That's pretty boring.
4G wireless chip manufactured in Taiwan.
The tune is in the back of your mind already.
Into the motherboard.
Wait for it.
The voting machine tapes clearly indicate modem engagement and transmission of election data.
Wait for it.
Some of the anomalies that we noticed in the 2020 general elections, that 5 key states all stopped counting at a certain time in these key battleground states. These were all where the software, Dominion machines, ESNS machines were used, the Smartmatic, the GEMS software. So when the vote stopped counting, and this has been noted in other countries as well, President Trump was significantly ahead. When reporting and counting resumed, there was a massive spike occurred that favored Joe Biden.
There were trucks that showed up on the 3rd, and then the 4th, and then the 5th, And how long did that go on? How
well,
many days?
I wasn't there the whole last week, but I know
For as
they were
long as
still-
you can recall.
Yeah,
How many days?
My last day was the 10th, and they were still coming in. And they're
Trucks.
coming from a company called Runback that does the high-speed scanning and printing of duplications, and I think the military ballots. So now I'm getting out of my comfort level here talking about this. I don't know what they're doing, but those ballots were coming in from a high-speed scanning company called Runback that apparently you haven't heard of Runback?
No, I've heard of Runback,
Okay.
ma'am. But what I'm trying to figure out is whether they printed them or they scanned them, and if they scanned them off-site, to what purpose?
I can't tell you
Because wasn't that your job to scan them? Well, I mean, not your job, but
Yeah. No, all the high-speed scanning happens at Runback. So those ballots go to Runback. As far as I know, there were no observers there. I don't know. I never got called to work at Runback. That's all I can tell you.
okay, with all due respect, Mr. Cook, now we've opened up a whole new can of worms.
Yeah.
So if you haven't heard, Dominion has been rebranded and it is owned by a far-right GOP person. We have people owning our voting machines. That's wrong. So here's my thought. Here in the United States, we pride ourselves on the pillars of democracy, especially the act of voting, right? So meanwhile, we pour immense resources into encrypting our banks and into blockchain security of something like Bitcoin. Yet our voting machines often lag behind the same kind of robust encryption standard that we use in our everyday banking. Yeah, so you know where I'm going with this, right? We trust our life savings to ATMs and online banking that are highly encrypted. So why not apply that same rigor to the machines that secure our votes? Bank encryption is a universally adopted fortress, a gold standard. We don't hear anything about banks being routinely hacked in ways that'll topple the whole system because they've quite surely invested into security like it's the backbone of trust. Voting machines, meanwhile, are a patchwork quilt of a different standard. We need to elevate that same patchwork to the same level of encryption and uniform security that we rely on in our finances. As a recommendation, let's call on our local, our state, and even our national authorities to prioritize voting machine encryption at the same level of our banks, even the same level of Bitcoin transactions. Tell me what you guys think.
How in the world could Donald Trump win all of the battleground states? Pew came out with their breakdown of the election today, and they literally said that even if there was a dramatic increase of folks who voted in this election, Donald Trump would have still won. That's perplexing because folks talk about how, well, Republicans even say if there's an increase in people voting, it favors the Democrats. Well, a leading expert in election forensics, Dr. Walter Mabane Jr. of the University of Michigan has found what he says is statistical evidence suggesting potential vote manipulation in the 2024 presidential election. His report analyzed 7 million votes across all 67 Pennsylvania counties and found that between 25,000 and 225,440 votes in the presidential race could have been fraudulent. His results support the findings released by the nonpartisan Election Truth Alliance. Nathan Taylor, the executive director of the Election Truth Alliance, joins us right now. Nathan, glad to have you here. So walk us through this. And there's somebody who's watching who's saying, all right, this is some Donald Trump was saying it was rigged in 2016, rigged in 2020. Now this is just the left saying it was rigged against them in 2024.
Thanks so much for having me again. A lot of fun times we've had in the past. It's felt like just yesterday, but it's been months now. So a little bit about my background. As you said, I am one of the executive directors of the Election Truth Alliance, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that is, we kind of put it together to investigate the 24 election, past elections and future elections. And I think what's important here is, as you said, is there's been a lot of talk about this recently, but I do want to highlight what we're specifically talking about and the findings of Dr. Walter Mebane. This is not voter fraud. This is election fraud. And the difference is voter fraud is from people who may cast their votes. Election fraud is specifically a concern of a system or a systemic issue that's changing how people vote against their will. And I think that's what's important is the work that I've been doing in the ETA and all of our volunteers. It's focused on, are there concerns of our systems and are they free and fair? And, you know, what can we do to dive deeper?
You, hey you, hey you, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Pay attention. You, hey you.
Since the US election, a British data scientist has been uncovering what she calls suspicious cases relating to the vote counting systems. She said that they were found votes that were added unexpectedly and even taken away. We spoke with her to hear what she suspects is going on.
Data scientist Sarah Eaglesfield says she discovered unusual changes in vote counts in several states during the 2020 election. According to her research, nearly 60 counties across the United States had ballots removed from the total count after they've been counted. She said,
It's not a drill, y'all. I've composed myself. We're back, and I'm going to read a little bit from this article published on the Economic Times. The article reads, according to the investigative piece from Daily Boulder, a private lab quietly implemented sweeping changes to voting machines used in over 40% of U.S. counties ahead of the 2024 race. Those changes, the report claims, were made with no public notice, no formal testing, and no third-party oversight. Are we surprised? No, we're not. Y'all remember when Ivanka Trump got those voting machine copyrights from China? Y'all remember when that happened? I guess now we know what that was for. Let's keep reading. What changes were made to voting machines before the 2024 election? The report centers around ProVNV, a federally accredited lab responsible for certifying voting machines in key states like Pennsylvania, Florida, New Jersey, and California. In early 2024, the lab reportedly approved updates to ES&S voting systems, which included new ballot scanners, printer reconfigurations, firmware upgrades, and a new electionware reporting system. Instead of labeling these as major changes, ProVNV classified them as de minimis, a term typically reserved for insignificant tweaks. This classification allowed them to bypass public scrutiny and avoid triggering full-scale testing or certification processes. I need time to process.
Republicans just acquired Dominion voting machines. Yes, that's the company that was controversial in 2020 that was used in every single one of these states that are gray. So Republicans now own this voting company, and when you go to their website, it's called Liberty Vote Now. That's interesting because Dominion was suing a lot of Republicans, obviously around the 2020 election cycle, and a lot of these states still use Dominion voting machines, which Republicans now own.
Hey everybody, it's Ryan Montgomery, also known as Zero Day, and I was just checking out the tweet from Steven Crowder, and it looks like there's a wireless device being used in a voting facility, and clearly that's against the law. So they wanted to get my opinion on it, and I'm going to just give you this. So every single year, I go to this event called DEF CON, which is a hacking convention in Las Vegas. There's usually about 30,000 people there. One of those sections within this conference is called the Voting Village, and since 2017, to my knowledge, there's been vulnerabilities found in voting machines. Up until 2024, there were multiple vulnerabilities found in the current voting machines that are being used right now. The odds of them being fixed in time for the election are, absolutely unbelievably low. So I don't think that is something that has happened. I would check into this for yourself, and no matter which party you're voting for, I believe we should have a fair election, and stay safe and leave any questions below. Thanks.
Could a hacker actually change your vote? Federal officials are adamant that that would be nearly impossible. But is that correct? Senior correspondent Eric Shawn investigates.
Can a machine be hacked?
I have demonstrated how to hack the ABC Advantage voting machines that we use in New Jersey.
He is the bane of election officials because Princeton University professor Andrew Appel says a touchscreen voting machine, the type used in about 10 states, can be tampered with.
I unlock the back door.
In 2008, he demonstrated how as part of an election lawsuit against New Jersey officials. While he notes there has been no documented case of a machine actually being hacked this way in a U.S. election, he says it could happen by simply swapping the machine's computer chip for his own.
And I'll just have to replace this one ROM chip.
Clark County technical employees came forward completely independent of each other. Discovered that the number of votes recorded by voting machines and stored on USB drives would change between the time the polls were closed at night and when they were reopened the next morning. In other words, votes were literally appearing and disappearing in the dead of night.
This is what we're looking at here. I found a hidden web server running on this system. So basically you throw the ballots in the tabulators, they suck the ballots in, they supposedly tabulate what's on them, put them into a database, and that database lives on this system. And I've looked through all the manuals in Dominion. I've been looking at them for years. I've never seen any mention of a web server anywhere in those manuals. Yet I see a web server running on this system. And not only is it running on this system, but it has a bunch of reports that have eyes basically into the results of elections that are on the system. All these different things that can be pulled up. And this web server that's running has in their firewall on this system, it's completely wide open. So Dominion has actually opened up a port in their firewall to allow connections from any IP address directly into this web server that then has a connection into the database, not only where the votes are stored, but where the configuration of each election is, which is absolutely unbelievable. And it's all unencrypted.
It was even more than the public not understanding, though. They were affirmatively misled in some cases. We had Jim Comey testifying that voting machines supposedly never connect to the internet, and thus supposedly it would have been all but impossible for internet hackers to have changed the outcome of the election. And that was just false on two premises, and I will get into what we specifically do know that happened, but this is sort of central to it. It was false in that what independent and highly respected election security experts explain is that even if the actual voting machines themselves don't connect to the internet, they all have to receive programming before every single election from centralized county computers that themselves either connect to the internet or can connect to the internet and often do, or that receive updates and programming from internet connected systems. So you're really just one or two steps away from the
elections in the United States use plurality voting, also called first past the post. In plurality elections, each voter selects one candidate, and the candidate who receives the most votes wins, even if they do not receive a majority of the votes cast. This means one candidate can win with even 40%, 30%, 25%, or even 22% of the vote if the remaining support is split amongst multiple people. This is a really common scenario. It's not hypothetical. Plurality elections distort representation because they penalize fields where multiple candidates share similar values or appeal to similar voters. When those voters are forced to choose only one person, their support becomes divided. A less preferred candidate with a smaller but consolidated base can win, even if the clear majority of voters would have chosen someone else. This is the vote splitting problem, and it is a defining feature of our current electoral system. This system also shapes the culture of campaigning. In plurality elections, every vote for another candidate is a vote you lose. The incentive becomes to attack opponents, undermine trust, and make people afraid of choosing someone else. Plurality voting rewards negative campaigning, fear-based messaging, and the perpetual logic of lesser of two evils. It produces disillusionment, disengagement, and outcomes that often do not reflect the will of the majority. We are living inside the consequences of the system. What ranked choice voting makes possible is ranked choice voting changes these incentives by allowing voters to rank candidates in order of preference. If no candidate receives more than 50% of the first choice, the last place candidate is eliminated and their votes transfer to the next choice on each ballot. This continues until one candidate secures majority support. This system ensures that the winner is somebody who the majority of voters can support. It also allows people to vote honestly instead of strategically, and there's no punishment for expressing your true first choice. And because candidates want to be considered not only as a first choice, but also as a second or third or ranked choice voting, naturally, they end up encouraging more respectful, cooperative, and values-based campaigning. We saw this clearly in New York City. Zohran Mamdani and Brad Lander, though running against each other, publicly praised each other's work and even encouraged voters to rank each other second. Their campaigns were rooted in shared commitments rather than character attacks.
Why are billionaires allowed to buy our elections? People ask me that all of the time. How did we get to the point where our politicians are more beholden to rich donors than to the people who elected them? I'll give you the shortish version. In 2010, the Supreme Court made a decision that changed how money, power, and corruption work in American politics. That decision was called Citizens United versus the Federal Election Commission, and it was a turning point. The moment the Supreme Court removed the last real limit on how much money the wealthy and corporations could spend on our elections.
There continues to be concern about fraud with Dominion voting machines. In fact, the U.S. government issued a warning about Dominion voting machines in June 2022. CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, issued this press release saying that Dominion voting machines had security vulnerabilities that could be exploited.
On election day in a precinct, are your machines hooked up to the internet?
No, not by any stretch. We go through a number of certifications, government certifications, and the first one is at a federal level. So those standards mandate that election systems, such as ours, are designed to work in a closed system, air-gapped, no intranet.
What is the vehicle for the transmission from the ICP? Is it cellular modem versus VPN?
Well, it is a cellular modem that can be configured in a VPN, right? And we currently in Chicago and Cook County, we work with Verizon to secure that network. So we would have the same capabilities here.
What wireless chipset / modem does the hardware have?
We support a variety. So it's really up to the jurisdictions what technology they want to use, what's compatible with their networks.
They got the Dominion guy under oath. The Dominion voting system is an executive named Eric Krumer. He admitted in January 27th in 2026 that voting equipment, application software, and source code were shared with foreign nationals, including Serbians, so they could remotely troubleshoot it in Denver. In 2020, they said, no, that's impossible. There is no way they can have access. So I'm not saying they had access to change votes during the election, but the fact that you had outside forces or somebody from down the road who could hack into it, not to mention on Patrick Bet-David, a very popular podcast, they had a Finnish tech come on there live on his show within 15 seconds, hack into one of these. The reason people are nervous is this type of information is coming out.
If they report it wrong, the citizens can recount these things by hand or any other method they want to invent, but they can recount them and actually compare them to what the machine puts out. The purpose of that, because a lot of people say, why are you doing that? The ballot of record needs to be correct, because if you do decide to do a recount, even though now you can recount by yourself, so you don't have to spend thousands of dollars to do a recount, you can recount yourself to see if there's something that's worth having an official recount. As a programmer, since I was the programmer that wrote the initial prototype for the voting machines, and in that prototype was already the ability to flip the votes to whoever you wanted to win. 51-49, you pick the winner, it's going to happen every time.
We've proved now that there was direct access to the Antrim County election management system because we show on November 5th, we can see it in the forensic images, that an anonymous user logged onto the EMS remotely with escalated privileges and made changes to the database when they were trying to retabulate the election. So that's one huge development because now we prove that the machines were remotely accessed, but more importantly, they were remotely accessed by an anonymous user who had elevated privileges in the system. That
flawed integrity of the electronic voting machines, particularly those made by Diebold election systems, exposing previously unknown backdoors in the Diebold trade secret computer software. The film culminates dramatically in the on-camera hacking of the in-use working Diebold election system in Leon County, Florida, the same computer voting system which has been used in actual American elections across 33 states and which still counts tens of millions of American votes today. Bro, that's crazy if they're still using the same machines. But that was a thing during Georgia, right? They were supposed to upgrade their machines, but they decided to wait until after the election to do it.
Hello, my friends. He did not start with tanks. He started with doubt. In Moscow, it was foreign agents and oligarchs, and in Budapest in Hungary, it was Brussels and Soros. In Ankara in Turkey, it was terrorists and traitors. The script was the same, though. The system is rigged. Only I can fix it. To fix it, I must change the rules. That is how a ballot becomes a weapon, and a republic becomes a memory. Vladimir Putin did not cancel Russian democracy overnight. No, that's not what he did. He nationalized it. First, he turned every race into a referendum on himself. Then he blurred the line between state and party, between patriotism and obedience. Then he tightened control over who could vote, who could run, who could count, who could speak. The word election stayed. Oh, yeah. But the choice disappeared. Viktor Orban in Hungary, he watched that movie. He watched Putin's movie and he wrote his own remake. Recep Tayyip Erdogan in Turkey, he did the same. Each man won in an open field. Then he quietly moved the fences until opponents were allowed to compete, but they were destined to lose. Each claimed to be saving democracy, right? As they strangled it in constitutional language and emergency decrees. Now, the current American president calls our elections corrupt unless his side controls them. He demands that we nationalize voting under his camp's thumb. And he hints he'll accept results only if he deems them honest. The names are different, my friends. The flag is different, my friends. But the logic is exactly the same. It's identical. This is the hinge. Do we remain a nation where the government fears the voters, or become a nation where the voters fear the government? If you feel tired, that is not an accident. Authoritarians survive on your exhaustion. They don't need your love. They only need your surrender. So, what can citizens do right now, today, tomorrow, for the long haul? Learn the pattern, name it out loud, refuse the euphemism, show up locally. Election boards, poll watching, nonpartisan voting rights groups, protect the counters. Elect state and local officials who pledge publicly to honor the results. Use your voice. Call. Write. Organize. Demand that no president can seize control of elections or ignore outcomes. Commit for the long haul. Let your persistence outlast their ambition. Democracy is not scenery. It is a job description for you, and I'll be back.
Miami, Minnesota, and Rockland County all have updates or more evidence on the 2024 contest being altered. Let me explain. The Election Truth Alliance, along with Grassroots Speaks and It's Up to Us, found multiple precincts in the Miami-Dade and Palm Beach area that had more votes than registered voters, meaning the turnout percentage was as high as 172% in one of the precincts. And they also found that machine-counted precincts where the turnout rate was over 60% incrementally and consistently leaned heavily Republican, while mail-in ballots and hand-counted ballots of similar percentages did not have this abnormality of one-sidedness. Similarly, Minnesota found that their machine-counted ballots had 6 to 8% higher Trump votes than the hand-counted ballots. The ETA says that this is internationally recognized as possible election integrity red flags, indicating possible inflation of votes. And lastly, Rockland County originally had a court hearing on September 22nd to determine whether their case would go to trial or not. The opposition filed a formal letter to dismiss the case, to which Smart Elections had to respond. The opposition then had to also respond, and now the judge has until November 11th to determine whether the case will go to trial, get dismissed, or needs more information. I haven't heard anything from Clark County, Nevada, or Cambria County, PA, as a few months ago they were investigating their own red flags into their machine ballots, but if I do hear anything, I'll be sure to let you know.
I need you to share this everywhere. Tag every progressive media outlet that's been ignoring us and every Democrat that's been looking the other way. We will not be ignored anymore. We know exactly how they cheated. Fake counties and private companies tallying votes behind closed doors. I have a Signal chat called Mom Save the World. It's literally for moms. One of them is T, the author of This Will Hold on Substack. She wrote a great summary of everything I'm about to tell you. I'll link it below. Another, now a dear friend, has spent the past year painstakingly combing through voter data, election night feeds, and state websites. And while she doesn't want to be named, she may very well be the mom who saves the world. Because here's what she found. Let me be clear. Votes can only go up. That is not what happened. We watched hundreds of thousands of votes disappear in real time. It wasn't a stall or a delay. They disappeared. And it wasn't just on one network. Brian Tyler Cohen, CNN, ABC affiliates, independent streams, everywhere. Here's the part no one wants to touch. The second your vote leaves your precinct, it enters a digital pipeline run by private companies. They decide what the public sees. You don't know who works there. You don't know who audits them. You don't know their political ties. And you don't know who has back-end access.
Apparently, Elon created an app, and he knew who won 4 hours before the results. So as the results were coming in, 4 hours before they called it, Dana White told me Elon was like, I'm leaving. So...
But these three companies, AP Votecast, Edison Research, and Decision Desk HQ, are the ones telling every network in America what the official results are on election night. And that's where everything cracked open. Because when my friend was painstakingly watching the feeds from election night, looking for the decreasing numbers, she spotted something else. Fake counties. It started with Burke County, Florida. So far, she's identified 4 more, but I'm sure we're not done. They do not exist. But somehow, they had vote totals in the millions. Glitches don't create entire counties out of thin air. Glitches don't populate said counties with massive blocks of votes. Glitches don't just happen to match the volumes that vanished on live television. And glitches definitely don't make one candidate's number drop while the other suddenly leaps at the same moment. What we saw wasn't democracy. It was choreography. The American public deserves to know who had access, who had permissions, who had right-level control, what the logs show, what Starlink touched, and what the hell those fake counties were doing in there. Until then, I'm looking at you.
New alarms being raised about voting systems connected online in several states. Could that make them targets for hackers?
Let me be totally clear in saying that, and I've said this many times, I accept our intelligence community's conclusion that Russia's meddling in the 2016 election took place.
Hey, do you remember the Rockland County, New York voter manipulation lawsuit that was going on? That is progressing, but there are now 2 other states that are looking into voter manipulation. An election forensics expert, Dr. Walter Mabane, has been investigating voter manipulation in multiple Pennsylvania counties. This guy in Pennsylvania is recognized internationally as a leading authority in election fraud detection, and the e-forensics model that he's using to determine if there is fraud has been validated by professional scientific publications, as well as been used to evaluate the integrity of elections in countries like Kenya, Venezuela, and Turkey. And now to add on top of all of that, Clark County, Nevada had the Election Truth Alliance, a nonpartisan nonprofit organization, analyze their votes for voter manipulation. And they claim to have found patterns that are consistent with voter manipulation found in countries like Georgia and Russia.
So out of all the counties in North Carolina in 16, so the blue below zero superintendent, right?
The blue below zero is the presidential Hillary Clinton.
Is the presidential. So only in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 4, 5, 6. So 28 counties in 2016, Hillary Clinton was below the superintendent. Correct?
What's
correct?
more important?
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Just 28. Just 28. 24. Every.
What's important, though, as you said, is when you look at 2016, you see that both candidates overperformed.
Right.
You see in some places the Democrats overperformed significantly, and they were exceeding the amount of overperformance the Republicans had.
But in 24, there is zero overperformance.
Yes, and that's what's important is this does not match what you would expect to see as normal human voting behavior.
Wow.
This is too consistent across every county. There's no variation. This raises alarms of potential systemic manipulation.
And when
where
you
would go
ahead, I'm sorry.
Let's talk numbers, because this isn't just a glitch, it's a national pattern. After the 2024 election, data analysts and election integrity groups found something they couldn't explain. I went over it in my previous video. I'm going to repeat some of it here. In key swing states, tens of thousands of ballots were counted for down ballot races like the Senate and House, but no vote was recorded for president on those same ballots. This is what they call drop-off, and it's not normal, definitely not at these numbers. So I'm going to go state by state, okay? Arizona, 267,000 people voted for Senate. Only 180,000 were counted for president. That's an 80,000 vote drop. Trump won Arizona by 40,000. In Georgia, 110,000 vote drop off in the presidential column. Trump's margin? Just under 30,000. Wisconsin, 60,000 fewer presidential votes than for other statewide races. Trump won by roughly 25,000. Nevada, drop-off estimate around 45,000 votes. Trump's margin there was only 15,000. Pennsylvania, more than 90,000 fewer votes for president than for Senate. Trump won that state by 50,000. In every one of these states, Kamala Harris was on the losing end of the drop-off, not Trump and not the Republicans. So, let's be clear. Some drop-off happens in every election. A few voters skip the top of the ticket, but not like this. Not in such consistent, massive numbers across states, across machines, and only in one direction. So, what explains?
This is a baseline. This very quickly shows you what does normal look like. This was Trump versus Hillary Clinton, and this is North Carolina. And this is what normal.
All right, pay attention, because this is not conspiracy. These are numbers. You see, the difference between us saying that the 2024 election was rigged and MAGA saying the 2020 election was rigged is numbers. You see, we evaluate numbers. MAGA had a bunch of conspiracy theories and a bunch of fucking wackadoodle ideas from some random guy on the internet and YouTube videos. But this groups like the Election Truth Alliance and other groups have been gathering numbers, factual numbers that say something was numerically off in the 2024 election. In this case, this gentleman is showing you a chart. Let me explain the chart, because it's very important that you understand what he's showing you. This chart shows the blue line, which is Hillary Clinton, and the orange line, which is Donald Trump, as how many votes they got in 2016 compared to the superintendent of schools. So when the blue line or orange line is above the base, they got more votes than the superintendent in schools for that county. The bottom has all the counties in North Carolina listed. And where it's below, they got less votes than the superintendent. But you can see that some counties blue got more and some counties orange got more. That's because it's based on voting. It's based on humans. In some counties, they like Kamala Harris or Hillary Clinton more. In other counties, they like Donald Trump more. And so this is what a normal graph looks like. Now look at this from 2024.
And this is what normal looks like. I'm going to show you 2024 for North Carolina. And then I'll just let you look at this.
Oh, wow.
That is the same reaction I get every time.
That's the same reaction I had. Oh, wow. What the fuck? Look at this. Every single county, Kamala Harris underperformed the superintendent of schools, but in every single county, Donald Trump overperformed the superintendent of schools. If you go back to 2016, some counties were more blue, some counties were more red. This is 100% red, 0% blue. And I like that the guy pointed out, if you notice on most of these charts, how far below the baseline the blue line is, it mirrors how far above the baseline the orange line is. It's almost like every vote that was cast for blue got taken away proportionally and given to red, and that's why the line above is almost the same size as the line below. That is what's called a mathematical anomaly. That means this just doesn't make sense mathematically. This isn't a conspiracy. This isn't people just saying things. These numbers don't math. And friends, when math don't math, something ain't right.
We have major news right now. There are alarm bells going off among state and local election officials right now as the Washington Post is reporting that the Trump administration and its allies are working to obtain voter data from states along with inspecting voting equipment. And the Washington Post is reporting that the most unusual activity is taking place in Colorado, where it's said that a consultant who was working with the White House had asked county clerks whether they would let federal officials or a third party examine voting machines. A Republican clerk in Colorado literally rejected it, saying, quote, "That's a hard stop for me. Nobody gets access to my voting equipment for security reasons." The Justice Department had separately asked at least 9 states for copies of voter rolls. 2 of them have turned them over. Elections are run on a state-by-state level, even for President of the United States. It is highly concerning that the Justice Department and the Trump administration would not just want voter rolls, but inspect voting machines. Why is this happening? We don't know. Spread the word. I'll do a full breakdown on my Substack, linked in bio. Subscribe.
Yeah. What do you think about Trump saying he's going to end mail-in ballots and voting machines?
Classic authoritarian power grab. He can't win on policy, so he wants to take away the ability to vote from about half the country and rig future elections.
How does removing mail-in voting do that?
Well, mail-in ballots in the last 2 elections comprised of 30 to 42% of the vote, and they tend to lead strongly towards Democratic ballots, which is where you get the red mirage, blue wave term from election nights. And mail-in ballots also tend to be most heavily used by working class people, and I suspect also from people that are trying to avoid discrimination or intimidation at polling places. And of course, Trump wants to take that away, or at least make it very difficult for all of those demographics to vote, right? And he claims it's due to election security, even though there's been multiple investigations into mail-in voting, and they've all come up showing that there's absolutely no fraud.
How close do you think we are to having the 2026 midterm elections be canceled?
I want to be clear, the canceling of future elections is an illusion because you'll still have the elections. Putin has elections in Russia. What happens is that the elections have no meaning because the outcome is preordained. And what we know is happening is that in Texas and in Missouri, they have redrawn the lines in the middle of the decade in order to guarantee an extra number of seats. This week on Assembly Required, my podcast, I had Ari Berman on, who walked through how Trump and Republicans plan to game the 2026 elections.
It seems quite possible, if not probable, that President Trump ordering the seizure of 2020 ballots and other materials from Fulton County, Georgia, that has a lot more to do with the elections of 2026 and 2028 than it does 2020. Why do I think this? How do I know this? Well, President Trump just told us. Here he is on a podcast with his former FBI Deputy Director, Dan Bongino, on Monday.
The Republicans should say, we want to take over. We should take over the voting in at least 15 places. The Republicans ought to nationalize the voting.
That's the president of the United States saying that we should scrap the way that we do elections with local and state control of the elections and have a party, the Republican Party, take control in 15 areas, presumably battleground states that he lost in 2020 and other Democratic-led states, because of these long disputed, deranged election lies from 2020. And don't take my word for it. His own top officials looked into it and found that all of this stuff was nonsense.
We have some major news right now. Donald Trump's new executive order that he's set to sign today, eliminating mail-in ballots and voting machines, is now setting off alarm bells across America, and especially within legal circles dealing with voting rights, for several reasons. First, elections are administered on the state level, even federal elections. Each state dictates its own elections, and the President of the United States cannot unilaterally change elections in states. So if states want to use these voting machines that Donald Trump claims are inaccurate, they can use it. If states want to use mail-in ballots that Donald Trump doesn't like, they can use them. And yet Donald Trump, ahead of the 2026 midterms, now wants to completely alter America's electoral process. But not just that, a lot of folks are saying that this executive order could disenfranchise millions, because mail-in balloting helps people vote who can't get to the polls, for example. And mailing in a ballot is much easier for a lot of people than driving to a poll booth and doing paper ballots. This is very significant, so spread the word.
What do you call it when a sitting U.S. president says he wants to take over elections in at least 15 states? What do you call it when he encourages eliminating mail-in voting, getting rid of drop boxes, and using ICE agents as armed election security? What do you call it when making people afraid is the goal, when the strategy is fear and the outcome is silence? You call it what it is: election interference, manipulating the vote. And it's
I saw this map earlier today and it blew my mind. This is what the election would have looked like if everyone except for uneducated white people could vote. Look at this map. It's insane. And I know it's not like the biggest surprise in the world that uneducated white people are voting for Donald Trump, but the effect that they had on the entire election, look at the difference. Trump wins 6 states. Kamala Harris wins 44 states out of 50 when you take out uneducated white people from the vote. This is like the most American map I've ever seen in my entire life. When people
look at this map, these are all the countries that do mail-in voting. So when Trump says,
We're the only country in the world, I believe, I may be wrong, the only country in the world that uses it because of what's happened. Massive fraud all over the place.
The only thing he's right about is that he's wrong. But Trump's threat to ban mail voting is part of his larger plan to tilt the voting system in his favor in advance of the 2026 midterm elections. Here's how Trump and his allies are trying to rig the results before you even get to the polls. An executive order issued in March calls for sweeping changes to our ability to vote, including requiring proof of citizenship to register to vote, along with stricter rules around mail-in voting, which would impact those with disabilities, the elderly, people stationed overseas, and more. Bizarrely, the order also seeks to rescind certifications on current voting machines. That means that Trump could call foul on results counted by machines that don't meet this new certification, even though those machines don't yet exist.
Talking about the Supreme Court decision that allows Trump to starve American families. But there is another court case, a larger court case that nobody is talking about, and it involves Trump and the 2016 elections. Last month, Facebook just sent a whole bunch of people a bunch of checks for about $30 because they were just sued for $725 million. Do you guys remember those personality type quizzes on Facebook like this? Greg, you're an alpha male. So those quizzes were collecting data on you and all of your Facebook friends. And that data was given to a company called Cambridge Analytica. And they used that data to create a psychological profile of every single user that was involved. And the purpose was psychological manipulation. So then the Trump administration and other Republicans that were running for office hired Cambridge Analytica with all of our psychological profiles, and they created targeted advertisements, and they mainly targeted 2 groups of people. So the first group were black people. So black people were shown memes like this, and this, and this, and this. And the purpose was to demoralize you. Because Republicans knew that they couldn't convince black people to vote Republican. So what they did is they tried to manipulate you into not voting at all. That your vote doesn't really matter. I want you to remember that. Republicans are so afraid of black people voting that they will try to convince you that your vote don't matter. So the second group that was targeted by the Trump administration and other Republicans, no Democrats did this, by the way, were emasculated white men that lived in rural areas. And they were shown memes like this, and this, and this, and this. And these were designed to manipulate male insecurity to vote for the party of real men, right? So you guys that seen those memes, you need to remember that that's what the Trump administration thinks of you. That you're an insecure little emasculated beta male that's easy to manipulate.